Carol is a very insightful and astute woman leader and has had the opportunity to get get insights into women-owned businesses and women leaders through her work. And so I am so proud and pleased that she was gracious enough to accept our invitation to be our Mistress of Ceremonies today. Please help me to welcome Carol Belay.
We're going to introduce a panel of women who have, I think, a lot of very interesting things to share with all of you. They've built high-performing companies and cultures, and we're going to talk a little bit about what has helped them grow. Before we started, I asked each of the panel members to contemplate specific leadership qualities that they thought were important in the success of their businesses. Maybe Linda, we'll start with you and come down the road just in terms of how you thought about that and what things stand out as being the most important.
Well, I think the first thing, hello everybody, it's really nice to be here with all these amazing women, so I hope I get a chance to meet most of you. But first of all, I think it's about a vision, having in your heart, knowing what you want to accomplish. When we started out, for me, I grew up in a very humble neighborhood, 8 Mile and Groesbeck, or Warren, if people know where that's at. And everybody in my neighborhood had legal issues, but could never afford a lawyer. So really, my heart was always about doing something good. And so when we started out, it was about, I started my law firm, I had a vision for just doing something right and good. I didn't really know the end path, but I felt if I invested in people, if I did good for people that I represented, that good things would come to us, and they have. The second thing I think that's most important is trust. I mean, you can't buy trust, you either can be trustworthy or you're not. So being honest with people, to be forthright, to be transparent, share with people how you feel, I think is really another critical thing. And the third thing, I think, it's about being optimistic. It's about having a forward, optimistic look at life and about people. I mean, I think being an entrepreneur, I failed a million times. You know, I've tried a lot of businesses, didn't work out, but it's about getting back up again and about being optimistic about your people. I've learned in having lots of people now that people look at things differently. They're learning, their backgrounds are different. We're all not gonna learn and grow at the same pace, but if you believe in others and you're optimistic, I think that you'll be successful. I was just going to mention that I read a study recently that said one of those entrepreneur magazines, and they said they studied thousands of entrepreneurial businesses, and why were some hugely successful and others failed? And they found the only difference between successful businesses and unsuccessful was how fast they recovered from a failure. So it's a matter of getting yourself back up, whether it's personally, in your personal goals, or in your business.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here too. Thanks for having us and for listening to us. I'm not sure I followed the assignment exactly, but I would say for me, in terms of building our culture, it's a true belief that putting the team first, putting the interest of the business and making business decisions over self, and really believing in serving others. And I think that when you're building a culture, having it genuine, having something that is demonstrated, it can't just come from me. I can live it, but it has to really come from everybody. And one of the messages that we started delivering is culture is really a reflection of all of us, of how we treat each other every single day, in work and when you face challenges and when you need help from a team member. So I would say, having kind of a team first mentality, putting our people first, where we really try to put our people before thoughts of money or profits or things like that. The second thing I would say is, in terms of culture, is making the decision to invest in culture. I've done a lot of reading, and have made some that might have been controversial decisions at the time when maybe we couldn't afford it, to make that my priority, to make culture a priority in how I spend my time, in what I ask of people, and I think that it has paid off. Sometimes our CFO would say, what are you doing, or whatever, but it's come through, and I think, really making that investment in culture, and it doesn't always have to cost money, right? It can be engaging people. So one of the things that we've done is we have committees. We have kind of a giving back, a charitable committee where they decide what they want to do and throughout the year. We have an employee activities committee where they come up with fun things. So it's not coming from me, it's self-sustaining. People who want to do it participate. We have a wellness committee. One of the things I've created this year is a culture committees based on certain topics. So culture, people initially might think, donuts and bagels. It's also about accountability, about putting the right people in the right seat. So I would say making that sort of conscious investment of time and attention. And the last thing I would also say is building trust. I think it's critically important. I talk about this with my team on a regular basis, and they all think I'm going to make them do, a trust fall or something. And I say, no, that's not what I'm talking about. And we look at communication, listening. We've implemented employee surveys. I do, with my HR director, every few weeks, employee roundtables. We put notes on our intranet. So just trying to find all different ways to communicate, both top down and bottom up, and really listen and engage people. And that's how we try to build trust and credibility through that kind of communication, through transparency. And once you have a vision, really looking at goal setting and then communicating the why. And so people understand, what are we trying to accomplish this year, and why is it important, and how are we doing in that? So to that end, I do town hall meetings twice a year, roundtables, just a variety of things to try to build that trust and credibility with our employees.
One of the first things I experienced as a leader was very early on in my late 20s. I was working at you saw on the sign there, Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And here I was, in my late 20s, and I was given an assignment to manage a group of about 15 people. About a third were PhDs, about a third were masters with many years of experience, and the other third were bachelors. I have 2 bachelors. So the first thing I said to myself, as a child, you grow up thinking when you become a manager or a leader, you're supposed to tell people what to do and show them what to do. And first thing I said was, what am I going to give these people? Well, the first thing I thought of is, whatever is in their way, try to remove it. Whatever's in their way to accomplish what they can accomplish. They are experts at what they do. They are the experienced ones. What do they need? What do they need to succeed? And that's what I went after. And that's really served me very well throughout. It's just respect each of the team members as the experts at what they do, encourage them in that. I was grown up believing that anything is possible. Anything is possible. Just dream big. And that's what I've tried to instill in that as well, and coaching people and believing in people, and sometimes pushing them into what I know they can achieve, and giving them the coaching where it's necessary. The second thing I would say, I'll base this around expectations. And this is another thing that I learned early on from a grandfather that had worked in a large plant managing at Ford. And he had told me once that people will always live up to your expectations, whether they're high or whether they're low. And that just told me at a very early age that always believe the best in people, always expect the most, and let them know that you believe in them. And that's been so true. It's been so true that people really do want to achieve the most that they can in what they do when you believe in them. Sometimes what that what needs to go hand in hand with that is the old, follow up and follow through. Though in the automotive and other industries, you call that plan, do, check, act. And that's very important as a leader. It's wonderful to be the coach and the cheerleader and the visionary, but really at the end of the day, what really helps your team as well is to follow up. That's how you know where those obstacles are. That's where you know where people are being challenged, and that's how you also know where you can just let some of the superstars fly with what they're going with, or where somebody might be struggling for a day or a season where they need a little bit extra help. So that all evolves around the common expectations. And then the third thing I would have to say, I haven't spent my whole career in one place. I've been in a number of different companies as well as engagements. I did some consulting at some crisis plants trying to resolve some issues that were very severe, where you have a lot of attention and from the global leadership, very hot tempers, trying to solve a problem. And I go to back to my faith. There's some verses in James 3 that talks about wisdom from above. And in wisdom from above, it creates an atmosphere of peace. And where you operate in wisdom from above, there's no jealousy, there's no self-serving. It's thinking about creating that peace, valuing the individual, and being reasonable, being able to listen. And I think that type of thing, it really got me through some of the most difficult situations where I was able to help lead large groups into success by just maintaining that and being able to focus on the problems and solving the problems with solutions, and not letting the emotions and experience that they were going through drive your decisions or drive your teamwork. And I think by doing that and valuing one another, you do have a very good cross-functional, safe place for people to work, and where everybody feels valued and everybody feels that they can contribute. And as you had heard me say in the video, it really does help a team shine. So.
My story is so different. I am the poster child for how bad you can be at leadership. I am not kidding.
She tried to tell me this earlier. I didn't believe her.
And she didn't believe me. And in fairness, I've been very successful. But leadership to me is something I'm... Okay.
Tried it.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. But get this. Leadership to me is something I had to learn, and I had to actually go after. I am what I call an accidental entrepreneur. So I accidentally got into business. You think I'm crazy, but it's true. I was working for an office furniture dealership up in Midland. They closed their doors on a Monday. We said, well, I don't want to work for anybody else, so let's just open a business. So 90 days later, we have an office furniture dealership up there. And by we, I mean I had a business partner at the time. And we absolutely had no idea about running a business. We didn't know for the first 5 years if we would make money. And financial literacy was kind of the first thing that we went through. So once we got financial literacy done, then we had, kind of pretty much chaos. Growing pains and chaos in the organization. And I have a very confident demeanor. I had no clue that it was leadership related. I didn't know that. I thought I was doing a great job. I thought I was doing a good job because I owned the business. Well, in 2000, I own the business, therefore I lead. So in 2007, we bring in, literally, nothing's going in the right direction here. And I didn't even, communicating the right direction wasn't on my day planner. So I sold chairs. That's what I did. I got up, sold chairs. People stayed, bless their souls. They were just kind to me. So in 2007, we brought in these consultants. And we're sitting down with these consultants, and I'm of course thinking we have employee problems, or I'm thinking we have, sales problems. He looks me dead in the eye in front of God and everybody, and he says to me, "The only problem you have is a leadership problem." At which point, I was like, okay, I've got a leadership problem. Now, I had two choices. Well, actually, first I go home, and I did feel sorry for myself. I really did. I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I went home, I felt sorry for myself, I gave myself, a week to feel bad, and then I decided that I needed to be a leader. And leadership is a decision that you can make, and leadership is something you need to be purposeful about. So in 2007, I started to do my little leadership transformation, and I completely agree with what everybody said. You've got to be purposeful, you've got to learn. I didn't know what leadership was. I honestly didn't understand the term leadership. What did that mean to me? What is this vision thing? I don't get this. What am I supposed to do? And I learned over the course of time that I need to know where we're going, first and foremost. I need to know, and I need to be able to tell the story of where we're going so that all of us get to go the same way. And I learned that I have to trust first, not trust second. You have to prove to me that you're not trustworthy. We hire people from the neck up. We don't hire you any other way. We have to trust you first, and we expect you to do the very best you can. I had to learn it. I wasn't good at it. I had to learn to communicate. I had to learn to share my energy with people in the room and to show them that, listen, if we're going to go in this direction, we can make it. And here's how you make a difference to me. Here's how you make a difference in this business. And once I got that, once I understood that, then my leadership skills improved. I'm a work in progress. I've been doing it now. I've been thinking about leadership. I've been working on leadership for 10 years now, but I'm a work in process. This idea of moving to the next level, to really be good at this, I find fascinating. And anything I can do, hopefully learn from some of you guys, to go to the next level, I'm happy to do it.
If there is one thing in hindsight that turned out to be one of the best things, one of the best policies, one of the best skill sets, and maybe it was a passion, what one thing do you still believe is responsible for the success of your businesses?
I did a lot of things right. You know, obviously you're not in business.
You
for
started the
23
business.
Yeah, I started the business. Yay, good for me. Didn't die, good for me. Right at the beginning, I remember we used to close our eyes and we used to schedule panic attacks. You know, like you couldn't do it right now, but you could do it Thursday at 3. Perfect time. All right, we did do that. I think resilience, extremely resilient, persistent, very optimistic, and it's easy for me to trust first. It's easy for me to do that, and because we're entrepreneurial, I think you have this magic that you're going for. This idea of what this business can be, this really creative thing that you're making, and it's fun for you. So you take that to the workplace with you, and I think you share that, and those would be some of the things I did.
I guess, you know, I've worked at a number of different companies and situations, and I guess it would be very similar in knowing in your heart that it can be done. I was asked once, you know, when I left Jet Propulsion Laboratory working on spacecraft, oh, what a letdown going to work in automotive or this or that. And I said, no, I said, really what drives you is the challenge. And as long as you can embrace that challenge and know it can be done. And then, you know, I think one of the first big hurdles was at the family company where we had just had a large growth spurt, and we had some challenges. We had some challenges with one of our major customers who was also going through a large growth spurt, and that was introducing problems in our organization. And by just, you know, encouraging the team to work together on projects and being, again, tenacious at it, and just following up on our plans, showing them that they can do it, that really accomplished that. We were able to accomplish incredible things. I think we had gone from a 2-year history of 11 continuous improvement projects to the first year, 75 completed, and some of these were very large. The next year was another 50 to 75 projects, and we were just a well-oiled machine working with that customer by the end of the first year. And just knowing that, having that belief that it can be done, and being able to help show or help encourage the team along those same lines.
Can you describe that a little more? I mean, it's a knowingness. It's a peace within yourself that you know this is what you want to do. It's the right thing. Would you call that part of? Is that part passion for what you do? I mean, how would you better define that?
Yeah, there's well, I've had people tell me I'm competitive. And I think maybe
no one here understands that. No one gets that.
So that's part of it is, you know, we can do it, and we're going to do it, you know, and I know we can do it. And so it's just starting to map out, all right, here's where we want to go. What are the things in our way, and how can we knock them off one at a time? And who can we engage to knock those things
And
off?
this is something you've always done, even before you came into the business.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
I too faced that kind of moment of decision making to, you know, stick with a family business, be a leader, invest the time into it. And when I had actually moved to Virginia to do an acquisition, I was there for a couple of years to help set the company and the culture direction and things like that. It was quite a turnaround effort. And I moved back about 5 years ago to take on really this larger role in succession planning from my mom. And at the time, there was just a lot going on in our industry. The business was changing, and we had grown rapidly, and we're at the point where we needed to really turn it into kind of a stage 2 business, a little more predictable, more systems, more process, things like that. And so that was, it was a pivotal moment for me to say, you know, am I ready to do this? Am I willing to put in the time to make this work, and a determination to say, yep, I am. I'm gonna go all in, I'm gonna invest the time, and I'm gonna figure it out, and I'm gonna make this work. And looking back, really, what I talked about earlier, the first thing I decided to do was focus on culture and our employees. And part of that was the belief that, you know, the employees then help the clients, and they help each other, and your business improves, and it starts with culture. There's a famous saying, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't quote it if I don't know where it came from, but it's the culture eats strategy for breakfast. And maybe you guys have heard of that. Okay, so it was really taking that and implementing that in our business. And we, 4 years ago, we started an employee survey just to gauge, you know, how are we doing? What is our baseline? Like, you go into the doctor for your physical, what's the baseline? And we've improved that every year now pretty significantly. So looking back, it was a tough and sort of conscious decision at the time. And we're still sort of in it, but so far, I think it's been a good one.
So Alison, in your case, it was more about confidence. And that's and maybe what you bring to the firm now is just that a real sense of self-confidence.
Well, that's a work in process, right, for everybody every day, I think.
Show of hands. That's okay.
But I think it was, am I ready and willing to do this and to really make it successful no matter what? It was a determination and then a decision to invest in culture first, really, is kind of when I look back on the decisioning, what came first.
It's people. It's
Linda.
surrounding yourself with good people, empowering them, giving them a chance. Now, I hired everybody's kids. Everybody called me. I hired anybody who showed up and needed a job, to be honest. But honestly, it worked out. I mean, it worked out for the 10 years before she changed everything. Well, because I think what happened when Alison took over, it was 10 years into the business? Maybe more. You know, what got you to be an entrepreneurial organization, I mean, I hired my best friend. She didn't have any, she was good in math, as I recall, in school, so I made her the accountant, you know. So, and then she like got an IRS letter and we had to pay fines, so we thought we better find somebody that did that better. But you learn along the way, you know, but it's empowering people around you, giving them a chance. People grew, we didn't take fault with one another. We really were a team. And then I think when you get to that get a bigger company, you have to put more structure. Now, I don't like structure. That's not what I do. That's what Alison does. Because you have to be, I'm an entrepreneur. I like to be trying things. You got to be experimenting. You got to be failing. If you're not going against gravity, jumping out of buildings, you're not going to be successful. You've got to, even whether you're in a corporation or starting out yourself, you got to take some risks and you have to be useful. So, I mean, I just think for me, it was all about surrounding myself with people who supported me, loved me. I valued loyalty. I needed, because I was working hard, they were working hard, we had to be loyal to one another and we had each other's back. We would go to the ball game. And sometimes people would go back to the office and do work. Now that work had to be corrected in the morning. But I mean, that was the dedication that I think people showed to me, and it really inspired me to give my best back to them. So it really becomes a circle of wanting the best from others, and as some of you have said it, in believing in people and really wanting them to be successful too.
I can kind of see you in a cape. You must have a closet full. You know, something that you were talking about, Linda, during the lunch break, you were talking about how different it is for women now than women of your generation. And in terms of how women relate one to the other, we hear a lot more about mentorships and that type of thing, but certainly since we're on this end of the platform, maybe the two of you have different ideas about that. But what was it that struck you that made you say that?
That
You were saying women and support is very different today.
I think when I started out, I mean, I went to law school at night. I worked for an insurance company where I was the first woman promoted and almost as an adjuster. They didn't give cars to women back then, and I desperately needed a car. My car had a Volkswagen that had holes in the bottom. You had to lift your feet up because you'd get wet going through puddles. I mean, so, but the guys all got a company car. They didn't give them to women back then. So I was promoted up. I remember the first time I was promoted to a pretty high level, you know, maybe 2 or 3 level supervisor. One of the other guy supervisors, same tenure as me, had been comfortable on that side, threw files at me, actually threw files at me. But of course, you know, I felt bad, but I thought, I'll get that son of a gun. You know, I'm going to do better. But so it was those things along the way. I went to law school at night, got my law degree, you know, figured things out. But I went to a big firm. There were no other women that at least I saw. Now you have the internet, there's more communication. I think more of you are shattering the ceiling over and over again. But back then, it wasn't so visible to me. There weren't that many women in government, in leadership positions, in companies. I went to a law firm. There were women, but they were all writing legal briefs in an appellate department. They weren't trial lawyers. And honestly, I kind of did stuff because I didn't even know any better that women weren't supposed to do that. So when I broke out there, and I think for a lot of women, we were talking earlier that, you know, she was a reporter, and back then there weren't that many women reporters. She became the editor of a major business magazine.
I got
So-
locked in the back of police cars.
Yeah. But women back there, like that are a little more senior, I don't know if some of you were in the room, it was a whole different thing. But I think now we have got to support one another, women. I see women my age that are not supporting women. They're not bringing them up, not in the way they should. I just think we've all got to do more to mentor women. It's not just putting women in a position, but it's mentoring them, saying, hey, how do you handle this? It's being there and helping you with your confidence. You mentioned confidence. It's all about being confident. You ever see a guy walk in the room, struts in, all confident, shoulders back? I mean, sometimes women come in, we're a little more, oh, I don't know. You know, you gotta walk in the same way, and being confident makes a big, big difference.
Tiger Woods has a caddy, he has a coach, he has an entire team devoted to him and making him better. Put together your leadership team, a mentor, and don't wait. Don't wait for somebody to come to you and ask you, would you like to be mentored? No, purposefully put together your leadership team. If you want to be a champion of this, if you really want to be good, you go out and you find 3 of the very best leaders you have, put them on your team. If they're great leaders, they're going to say yes, because that's what great leaders do. If they tell you no, pick different. Pick somebody different. But put that team together and allow yourself all of that input. And make sure, if they tell you something, don't ignore them. You put them on there for a reason. If you've got a coach and a caddy, you got to listen to them a little bit. Now, they may not know 100% of what your business is, but they know stuff you don't. You can make huge strides using a mentor, using a coach, using a team around you, and actually some of your employees too. Listen to them. Are they giving you vibes that you're not the best leader you could be? Listen. And once you get that going, bing, you can leapfrog some of the time that actually takes to create and be a purposeful leader.
Alison, do you think it's different now? Do you think there are specific things women business owners can and do now that maybe they didn't before? You're sitting present generation, so really curious as to your perceptions.
I would echo what both of these women have said. I think, women supporting each other, organizations like this, days like this, and just being here and networking and making the connections and the follow-up, I think is critical and something that we need more of. And in terms of mentoring, in terms of building your team, understanding and believing that it doesn't have to be me. I don't have to be the one with the solutions. And I've tried to put a team around me that has different perspectives, different skill sets, and really waiting for the right people, not being desperate. Sometimes I think we get, at least in my business, oh my gosh, we need somebody right now. I need a solution right now. And I've made some difficult decisions along the way that, that's not the right fit. That's not the best person. And my team looks at me going, what do you mean? We need that person. That person can work. They can fit right in our business. They have the skills to do it. And I say, no, that's not the best fit for us. We're going to wait and we're going to find something better. And we have. And building that team and the support at home as well. I've learned a lot from my mom and some of the coaching that she's done to really set goals on a personal level and at home. And I remember, saying, okay, how much does it cost to hire a housekeeper? And I was an attorney in Atlanta, and I couldn't even think about having, meeting somebody for dinner with my schedule or leaving work before, 9 o'clock at night. And so my Saturdays would be spent cleaning. I thought, this is my one day. it's worth the investment to hire somebody to help me so that I can be at my best too. And so I think it's kind of making those decisions along the way and recognizing, you know, what you're good at, when you need help, not having to have all the answers.
Do you see yourself as coach?
Oh, absolutely. I think as leaders, as women, as people, I mean, just in business, we're all coaches all the time. I mean, that's just engaging. I'm always learning from other people too. So I'm always trying to listen, observe. I'm not taking actual notes, but I'm trying to take mental notes at what people are saying up here even, just to always be learning and growing.
I want to make sure you have a chance to comment, Laura, and the same. You know, whether you believe it to be very different now. Mentorships, were they available then? Do you think they're more available now? The coaching aspect of being an entrepreneur.
Well, starting out in the field that I did, I was sharing during the break that I was one of 3 out of my graduating class of about 100 students in the aerospace engineering field. So I knew, you know, early on that it was a field that wasn't going to have a lot of women. But I had the benefit of being my first full-time work, being in more of a campus atmosphere where there really weren't any boundaries per se experienced on the level that I was at. Women were actually given good opportunities and looked at as strong team members. I had an internship where it was a little different. It was at an OEM in an overseas department where we had to ask the domestic engineers to make changes to accommodate an overseas design. And they sent me to go to this room filled with, this is when they had drafting boards. I'm aging myself big time, but it was all drafting boards, all men, you know, smoking, and here comes this young blonde girl coming in wanting them to change their design, and they wouldn't give me the time of day, but I just kept at it. Finally, they would all come around the table, they'd listen to my design, and yeah, that looks good, let's get that costed out, you know, and so I think that, yeah, the barriers were there then. I think there still are some barriers now. And I did mention in the video that it's when you get to know one another and you are persistent, you know, as Alison said, persistence and just expressing your point, valuing what other people have to say in the conversation, they start to, you know, that's where people start to bond. That's where people start to trust one another. And so in terms of mentoring going forward, where I think there are a lot of more opportunities for women, I have experienced organizations where the opportunities may be there, but the perceptions are not always there in the room during a meeting.
What do you mean the perceptions are not always there? Whose perceptions?
Well, I also shared during the break, I had one of my oldest son went to Ross School of Business at U of M, and they actually had a class talking about this type of thing, the social type of aspects in the business world. And they took surveys, and actually, and this was just about 4 or 5 years ago, and even the young women in the classroom had perceptions about women leaders versus male leaders. A strong, assertive woman had a different perception about that woman than they did the man. The man had a very positive perception if he asserted himself and had strong opinions or strong, leadership type personalities, where the woman was looked at as being not as positive. Let's put it that way. So I think those are barriers we're still going to have to work on. We're still going to have to give each other those opportunities and make sure that we don't have any type of preconceived perception. I mean, some of the women, the young women in the classroom were appalled at themselves. They didn't realize that, yes, they did have these things ingrained in them. So I do believe that the mentoring, the coaching, the encouragement, and giving opportunities to women, especially organizations like this, are just phenomenal to just keep giving us that confidence, giving us those opportunities, creating the opportunities for one another, I think is just really key to finally break through that.
Work-life balance. Is there such a thing? What you got?
No. There's no life balance. I mean, if you're going to start a business, how many of you are entrepreneurs or own your own business? So a lot of you. I mean, there's no life balance. I mean, you never stop. You leave at 6, but you still worry about it at night. And I mean, that's just the way it is. You do your best. But I'm going to tell you a secret that really changed my life, and that was making a vision for myself. What do I want to be in 20 years? Where do I want to be? I want to be healthy. I want to have surrounded by my family that's doing well, financially well, healthy. You start setting goals, and then you start to say, well, what do I need to do today? And it forces you to start worrying about your health. All right, do you have a doctor? You start writing goals. There's power in writing it down. I just can't even express to you. We gave you a book, I think, that's from us, but that's to start writing your goals down. Be a goal setter. I swear to you, every successful person I know is a goal setter. And sometimes your goals are like, I've had on my list, lose weight. I mean, that's always a goal. And sometimes it's just little tiny things that you have to make yourself do and check in each quarter with what you need to do to get your health in order, your career in order. So I would say it's all about writing things down and so important. Goal setting, visionary. I want all of you. You're probably all visionaries, but get better at it.
Alison?
I would also say no, not really. I think it's being intentional with your use of time. And so I think the business for me is pretty all-consuming. My mom thinks I'm, taking vacations all the time, I'm sure, but it's about, how much thought and work I put into the business.
Do you have less work-life balance than anyone because your mom's looking over your shoulder?
No, I tried to get over that a while ago.
You stopped listening at 14, right?
It's a little older than that, but it is two different perspectives, I think, and she's really all about the business, and I try to say, okay, I need a couple of days for my own sort of mental health and recovery, or my physical well-being, whatever it is, and set that time a little bit more intentionally. And then if we happen to be together, I've even started saying, okay, we can talk about business these couple days, but these days I really need a break. And she doesn't
She's
get
blushing.
that. But I two different perspectives. I don't know if it's generational. I'm not a slacker, but
Really, Mom.
so it's just, I think, being intentional with when I do take a break or how to spend my time to try to create some element of balance, even though I don't really think it's that. It's just where are you going to put your focus?
Laura, where's your balance?
It's not very good. I tend to be an obsessive person. I say I'm obsessive, too lazy, or too tired and lazy to be compulsive. But early on, I realized I obsess over things. I chose aerospace engineering because I did go through physics and had some instructors that wanted me to go forward with a PhD, but I wanted a family, and I saw how they lived, and I knew that would be my mind wrapped up in whatever they were focused on. And so I chose to go into aerospace engineering because they had a little bit more normal hours. And that seems to be the way that I've operated especially in a smaller business or a business that's family run or that you started, you do tend, you all know, you do tend to think about it more, work at it more, try to close off as many loose ends as you can. So, and I've seemed to have walked into roles very similar to that, very project-oriented roles. You know, my husband was a psychiatric social worker, and while there was a lot for him to think about when he came home, a lot of his work was more day-to-day and task-oriented. And I used to tell him I envied that because he can turn his mind off. When you have so much that's project-oriented, it's hard to turn your mind off. There's always more to do. There's always things that are left unopened or uncompleted when you leave. So you tend to not leave when you should. And some of the things I think I could have done better were if I knew I had work to be done. I always had a laptop. Maybe I should have just taken that home, at least to be on some of those periods of time, to at least be in the family atmosphere a little bit more than I was when the projects were hot. You know, so I really respect what Alison is saying. It was something that I've had a hard time in my career, being able to, you know, say when things should shut down and focus on the family or the personal life or your health. Usually that's the last thing, you know, unless it's tied up with something that your family does. You know, like my family's very interested in running, so I have been able to go through periods of time where I've ran a lot with them and we work out together and that kind of thing. But unfortunately, in some of the roles I've been in, that hasn't always been something that I could manage well.
Kathy, how are you doing?
Well, I think work-life balance is right up there with carbs, just something else you can feel guilty about, you know? Shut up. I wouldn't define work-life balance probably the way most people would. In our business, if your kids have a soccer game and if your kids need you, if family, go do, you know, and so that is balance for me. That is, if my children need me and if I wanted to go to a soccer game, I didn't miss any. I'm also really, really passionate about what I do. So I don't get up in the morning and going, oh, another day at the drudge hole. You know, that's not what I feel. What I feel is, lucky me, I get to get up and tinker with this thing again. And lucky me, I get to work with the people that I want to work with. Lucky me, all this thing. So I am massively happy when I'm in this environment. It makes me really happy. Other people in my business have different types of a balance that they do. That's up to them. I don't want to feel guilty because I love what I do, and I don't want you to feel guilty because, you know what, you want to garden a little bit more, you want to spend a little bit more time with your family, or you want to take a little bit more vacation. We are playing with a couple concepts right now, but one is an unlimited vacation. You do it. You tell us what you need. Now, that's probably not a benefit for me because I'm about to go down to 1.5 day of vacation. But for everybody else in the organization, you know, it makes it a little bit more of a work-life balance. So I think it's personal, and I don't think we need to buy into the fact that if you're not putting 6 hours a day into your family and 7 hours a day into your business, that shame on you. No guilt. This is a no guilt area. You do whatever's right for you, and you do it well.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm going to come down to the floor, and I just need a show of hands in terms of where the questions are, and we can pass the microphone back
Can I
and
add
forth.
while you're walking?
Yes, do.
I think sometimes as women we feel like we need to take everything on, and I look at some of the men who are leading businesses. And I remember I was just at an offsite and one of them said, you know, for me and my business, I need to take so many weeks off per year and reset. And it was a big number. And I thought, wow, I mean, I would never be able to think like that. And it really has changed my thinking a little bit, because I have guilt. I don't know if it's a woman thing or, you know, but I think we take things on and then we feel guilty that we're not at work or not at home or not doing this or not doing that. And so I'm trying to help myself with that, because I see a lot of men who don't seem to have that kind of guilt. It's just,
You have no guilt.
this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to take 6 weeks off for my business and myself and all that. And it's a different way of thinking that was really foreign to me. So anyway, just a woman thing.
Go ahead.
Thank you, ladies, so much for sharing with us today. And this is my amazing business partner sitting next to me. And we've had these conversations so many times about that work-life balance. And she has a 2-year-old. I have a child about to go to college. So we're at very different stages in our lives. And I work nonstop. Like, for me, I feel guilty when I'm not working. And she has to give me that balance. So I'm like, okay, Tammy, put the brakes on. So thank you for that. My question is, as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure as many women in this room, our mind never shuts off and is constantly thinking about, okay, how can we make this process better? How can we do this? Being able to diversify and explore new opportunities and making sure that we're pursuing that vision for our business and that we're not stagnant. And my question really is, I guess, to the Orlans, and I see from your presentation how you started your business in one area and then you kind of expanded and started to go into other areas. Like, when did you know that it was time to expand? Which things to expand on? Because your mind is constantly like moving, like, I want to do this, and what about this, and here's an opportunity. Just would love to get some insight.
Yes, that describes my mother.
Well, I like to do everything, and I like to help people. So when opportunity comes, I like to grab it. Now, people in the office call us like Walt Disney and his brother. Walt Disney was the visionary, and his brother's the one that got stuff done. But if Walt wasn't there, they wouldn't have bought Disney World. They wouldn't have bought the land. So I'm kind of like the vision. I think we have to be stretching ourselves. We have to be taking risks. And I think for entrepreneurs, it's about opportunity. Sometimes we'll spend time in a strategy meeting and people will think, well, we could do this. I mean, honestly, I think it's kind of a waste of time. It's what opportunities are in front of you. What are you really good at? What do you love doing? What are your clients asking you to do? And you gotta stretch to do that. So I think it's about just taking advantage of what's right in front of you and doing stuff you love.
Yeah, we experienced the same thing, especially in the big boom of aluminum and the use of automotive that really created a lot of not only opportunities but also greater challenges, because there's more opportunities for more people to participate. So it's really changed the way we've had to do business that we've done for 39 years, and with new competitors out there. So sometimes you have a kick in the pants to move forward in order to stay in your space and stay relevant in your space. And for us, it was looking at other capabilities besides just our core that could complement and that our customers require. So those are things that we've been looking at and we've been adding as we can in order to be competitive and stay in the space and stay doing what we love to do and what we know we do best in the market.
And I would say, having a pretty clear vision, if you shut your eyes and know where you're going to go, will help you edit your opportunities so that you're not playing whack-a-mole with your business. I want to do this. Oh, no, this is better. Over here, over here, over here. That, from a leadership perspective, that causes chaos in your business. Your people aren't comfortable with that, and you lose a little bit of credibility. If you go back and say, you know what, my North Star is here, I want my business to look like this, what comes in from that will really be helpful. And it's that editing process that I think when you go from entrepreneurial into that second stage, you introduce that into the mix. Not to say that you edit everything. Sometimes you just got to go guts out. I like this, this is going to go. But most of the time it's that little bit of editing that helps you be very purposeful about where you're expanding and which opportunities you go for.
Quick question for Alison. You coming into the business working with your mom, my mom was an awesome lady, but she didn't get to see what I'm doing, so she's deceased now. But did you feel like, were there some doubts in your mind when you said, hey, I'm gonna go work with my mom, she's already established the groundwork, were you feeling, what were your feelings coming on, and did you defeat those, or did you even have any that, like that?
Sure, definitely. And the mother-daughter dynamic is its own, I don't know what you would call it, but quandary perhaps. But yes, and I mean, I definitely had all of that, and I think, people say, oh, you're following in your mother's footsteps and all that. And one of the things that this has brought us is being in business together is recognizing and finally, I think, really understanding and appreciating that we're very different. And so, to talk about confidence, it took a while to say, okay, you know what, I'm not following in her footsteps because nobody can really do that. I have my own path that's different and that's complementary to her, and it was becoming more comfortable with that and really believing that over time, I think.
You had mentioned a few times that you recommended or that you thought out what obstacles were in your way or in your employee's way, or I'm assuming even in the vision of your business's way. And I was hoping that maybe you could give me or us more concrete examples of how you determined what those barriers were and what those obstacles were. I know one of the things you mentioned was follow up with people, but if you could give some concrete ways in which you determined what those barriers were, that would be helpful.
Sure, it can be so many different things, and it really depends also on the project or the task at hand. Early on, we had very, very tight timelines when you're launching a spacecraft, you have a very narrow window. So whatever needs to be completed, it needs to be completed then. So in that case, a lot of times the challenges were if your team member doesn't feel they can complete an analysis or a programming or that type of thing. So it's saying, okay, what are my other resources? My other resources are time, other additional people. It might be taking a look at the task list that we've got, and it might be taking a look at his overall design. What is he trying to accomplish, and can we parse some of that out to somebody else? So it's taking a look at it from that perspective. So you've always got your time, your money, and your resources to complete the work, and a lot of times it's just balancing that. In some cases, the objectives that need to be achieved within that project or objective, your team member may not fully grasp what he needs to do on every step. So that's where the follow-up and the follow-through, talking to them about it and finding out what are they struggling with. And it might just be that coaching. And it might be the type of thing that if it continues in that specific area with that individual, that's just something that they struggle with, and maybe there's a slight shift that you can move that individual into where they're just going to flow. They're just really going to flow. And so that's something to always keep in mind. What types of people do you have that you're working with? Because some just work so naturally in this area, but they really struggle in that area. And we want everybody to just really succeed and feel like they're shining by just flowing, in their natural abilities. I had read a book by Zig Ziglar one time where he talks about eagles and ducks. Don't make a duck do an eagle job, and don't make an eagle do a duck job. They're just going to be so much happier being in a niche that they need to be in. I don't know if that helps.
No.
Thank you so much, ladies, for coming. I'm so grateful that you were able to share what you shared. It really grounded me and gave me hope for my future. I mean, you guys have such a broad span of what you do. But I want to kind of dive in a little bit on the family and work, question and get in there a little bit different. It might be more set more or less on a personal note. It really didn't matter who answered it. But Linda, you shared earlier that you came in on a time where women wasn't really appreciated. Let's go back to possibly in-house. Maybe how did your significant others, spouses, obviously you had a spouse or someone you loved at one point, if not he's still in your life, accept your leadership and power as a business owner? How did they adjust or accept the leadership that you had? Obviously you were able to be able to run a capable business and manage a family life, as we always do as women.
I was always really driven in business, and when Alison was 3, he found another woman and divorced me. So, and I was single. I just remarried 3 years ago. So, but honestly, I look at other women who were in powerful positions, and almost all of them are single or today have a stay-at-home spouse. It's really hard to be an entrepreneur or a business leader and not have or you're making enough money where you can provide the support at home and hire housekeepers and do things like that. But often when you're starting out, you don't have the money to do that. So when you're consumed, you're not focusing on that important other person in your life. So those of you who do have a significant other, I mean, you've got to really every week write down, I love you, or start to really focus on it, or you'll lose it. I swear to you, you'll lose it because your business will swallow you up. I think so. I didn't do a very good job of it, so I'm a bad example.
And I'm going to take it from there just because I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I've been married for 32 years. I have a husband who gets up every morning and goes, sell, sell, sell. Out you go. I'm serious. He does it every day. But this is such an important part. It's so important because you see corporate executives whose wife stays home all the time. They're a team. He's moving his career in a certain direction, and she's there as his teammate to help. It's important. When I was younger, I tended to be a little bit snotty about that relationship. I'm not snotty about it anymore because it's so important for you to be successful that your significant other doesn't hinder that. And that's a really big conversation because this can be a really threatening dynamic. If you're the one that is making triple the income, if you're the one that's meeting the governor, if you're the one that's, constantly, if he's constantly the wind beneath your wings, you've got to have that conversation because you don't want the hindrance of that relationship. It needs to be neutral or best case scenario supportive. I was blessed. I get up every morning and I am blessed that my husband is very, very, very supportive and always has been. And I couldn't be here without that support. So to me, this is a daily conversation, and to the point of, making sure that just like you would with your employees, understanding how important that team member and that significant other is to your success. That's something you communicate every way, every day, a million times, because it's hard. Great question.
I think that you're giving a straight story that all of us can relate to and understand, and you're telling us realistically what your experiences are. You mentioned earlier, I can't remember which one of you, about responding quickly from failure. And I know that all of you have probably, if you're in business and in a small business starting out, you've had some challenges. So could you give us a brief example of a failure or a challenge that you experienced and how you overcame it?
Yeah, well, first off, it should be a goal to fail once a day. I mean, that you really should be like, yes, embrace the failure. I failed financially. To be in business, I was fired. I mean, the business closed and I didn't have any place else to go, so I started business. So I guess you'd call that a failure. Actually, it's that, you only really fail if you stop. So it's win a few, learn a lot, and every time you fall down, get up, yell around the office for a while, and then, why, and move forward. And I think you wouldn't be here today if you didn't kind of have that mentality. So you've got it. You just got to practice it a little bit more and literally make it a goal, Celebrate your failures. Let's go for it.
When you do fail or when something doesn't go the direction that you had hoped, it's to not look back. Just keep looking forward. There's always more opportunities. There's more things to be positive about and to look forward to. And just as Carol said, Kathy, I'm sorry, just as Kathy had said, you learn from it though. There's always something to learn from. And I've just always learned that for every failure, everything that doesn't go right, there's always wonderful things to gain from it. There's always a great, I always say that the Lord gives you something wonderful to learn from it and to move forward with.
I agree with that. I mean, I've made hiring decisions that were bad. We started and kind of got some business opportunities that really didn't work out in the end. And part of it is, how can we turn this into something good and useful? What can we learn from it? How can we move on and be better as a result and try to advance even more beyond that? And so I think that's it's a part of kind of the growth and the renewal and ongoing and getting better, recognizing that we're always learning and growing. I mean, sitting up here, I mean, I can speak in a factual way, but I'm figuring it out too. So that's what I would say.
I would just say never give up. There were times when I wanted to give up, lots of times, but I just kept going because I just knew I had something more to give, that I wanted a better life for myself and for the people I touched, and that's what drove me to get up every day and plow back into it. And there were years when I made no money, and there were years when we made a lot of money, and honestly I gave it all away to charities I love and people I love, and I don't regret a minute.
My question is to you, Laura. You've mentioned your faith several times during this, but I saw that you had a corporate chaplain, and I was just like, oh my gosh, that's just amazing. Can you talk about that a little bit more and how that permeates your culture and who you attract and why and the success there?
I would love to. One of the things when I came back, I just love our team. I love the people out in the shop. I love the people in the office, and I just, my number one priority is to take care of all the families. That's the thing I think about most. And one of the things I want them to know is how much they're loved. They need to know how much they're loved by the Lord, because that's the only way they'll know their worth and what He did for them. And that can take on a lot of things. That can take on, somebody to talk to about the Lord, somebody to just be able to talk to just because they need to talk, somebody that can be there to be able to do ceremonies and things of that nature. So I had a somewhat frustrating board meeting about a year or so ago, and I just felt that they were a couple of members that had been on the team for a very long time, and they just were starting to not give the constructive advice that we needed, And my family is a faith-based family. We have a lot of faith-based employees in our company, and I was looking for something more, and I joined a CEO group. That's a Christian CEO group called C12, and the idea came there, and I thought, what a wonderful idea to have a corporate chaplain, to just have them available for our team members. You know, I've wanted to do things like that so that they do feel valued, they do have a place to turn, they do have someone that will pray for them if they need it. And so he comes once a week. He tries to span 2 of the shifts. I've got to work with him a little bit so he can hit, we have a 3rd shift I'd like him to be available for, and I think he's open to that. And it was wonderful because he had been praying, even though he's my pastor. So I wanted good truth to be, you know, shared, and somebody I really trusted to just love on the people the way I knew he could. And he had just been praying that even though he's a pastor, he really wanted more opportunities to just be there and be the light, you know, be God's light. And it was just perfect timing. And I think it's gone well. You know, I think, you know, I've heard good response. We've only had him for about 5 months now. So, but I've been really pleased. I mean, we want to do more. You know, since I came back, we wanted to do more for the team. You know, we have a lot of people that work they come from Pontiac. It's there's still some very depressed areas there, and some of our employees are just paycheck to paycheck. And so we want to even grow a food bank in an old office area that we have. So there's more things like that we want to do. Again, you know, just to give everybody that worth, you know, that they're loved.
Thank you, ladies, all of you, and you were inspiring. Thank you very much for inspiring us.